Let's start some trouble.
The story of the selfless savior of Rome has long since passed into legend. It is easy these centuries later to forget that in his time he was regarded as a criminal and forced to flee Rome with his friends to escape execution. We are more familiar with his legacy, the towering example of loyalty and righteousness that he came to represent in the years following his exile. He was a servant of Rome who rose time and time again to defend the Republic in war and in politics. It was only at the very end, when the lives of his closest friends were threatened, that he turned his back on law and tradition. The example he set for his fellow Romans has endured to this day. It is said that he sought refuge in Egypt, where he was granted a palatial estate overlooking the lush banks of the Nile. Though he was no longer welcome in the Republic he had saved, he was still held in high esteem by many in Rome. And through his connections in the Senate and the trust Queen Cleopatra held in him, he maintained a great degree of influence in Rome as well as Egypt. Thanks to him, the already close ties between the two nations were further strengthened. Cinyros. Once he had been an athlete, a wrestler, and a troublemaker. But in our story, he was a servus, a protector, and a mentor. He had died diligently performing the task to which he had devoted himself, protecting his ward. Cinyros was given a tomb in Rome's finest cemetery, next to his old dominus, whose death had incited this story. His cowardly murder had robbed him of any opportunity to see his homeland again. Though he met his end with dignity, he was forever denied the forgiveness and the vindication that he had sought for the mistakes of his youth. With nothing left to keep him in Rome, Caeso followed his friends into exile. Though his love for the Republic never diminished, he always seemed to be in his element abroad, as though he had finally found a way to go away on a military campaign that would never end. When his friends stayed put for too long, he would leave for extended periods of time to visit distant friends or take job as escorting merchants on long trips. But he always returned to his friends with new stories to tell and new riches to share. Even though it began in exile, Callida's second marriage turned out considerably better than her first. She followed her new husband to Egypt, where she valiantly fended off Cleopatra's advances on him. She did not take quickly to the opulent luxury of the royal palace, but eventually she did get used to it. Callida was happy to find that it was possible to be a wife and a mother without giving up the things she loved. She taught their children archery and horseback riding, and nobody ever again looked down on her for her unwomanly pursuits. Bestia returned to Africa to look for his sister again. Eventually, he did find her, and together they returned to Mauritania, where they settled down in an idyllic village and started new families of their own. In this new, quiet life, Bestia learned the true value of happiness. Deianira followed her friend into exile. Rome had never quite lived up to her expectations, and she was glad to leave it behind. Eventually, she returned to her homelands of Scythia, where she reconnected with her family, but she always remained in contact with her friends, visiting frequently with new stories and exotic spices from distant lands. Claudiana lived for many more years. She had many friends in Rome, and her life was peaceful and comfortable until her final days. On her deathbed, she revealed that she had once been very close indeed with Lucullus, and that indeed the true family name of her children was Liciniia. Cato remained an important figure in Roman politics. Grudgingly respected even by those among the population who desired change, he remained a defender of the patrician class, a shield against the pandering and opportunism of more populist voices. He himself was elected consul twice throughout his life, and his years in the position were generally favorably regarded. Cicero served one more year as consul before his retirement. In his old days, he lived a quiet life on a farm in Sicily. where he was greatly beloved by the people for his time as quaestor. He continued to write many books on politics and law. Defeated once more by Rome, Mithridates escaped to the lands north of the Black Sea in the hope that he could raise a new army. But the locals soon rebelled against his rule. Incapable of taking his own life by poison, in the end, Mithridates died by the sword of his bodyguard. With Zenobia in charge of Musia, it became once more a peaceful part of the Roman province of Asia Minor. With her focus on trade and strong ties to the neighboring regions, her people enjoyed a period of great prosperity. Grateful for the mercy he had been shown, and no longer with Mithridates to tempt his greed, Damianos quickly resumed political leadership of Thracia. Here, the gladiator rebellion that had started in his school was threatening to spiral out of control. Thanks to Damianos, the gladiators were pacified quickly and without inordinate bloodshed. Lunia's death sent Nazarmanes spiraling into a fractious conflict as greedy elders from minor tribes attempted to fill the void her passing had left behind. Though Queen Cleopatra attempted to bring the region under control, her attentions were too divided, the conflict too great for her to manage. Rome was forced to send more legions to enforce peace and stability with an iron fist. Though Africa Proconsularis eventually saw peace again, the traditions and culture of the Berber population were lost forever. Queen Cleopatra Philopator was, from the day of her coronation, a greatly beloved Queen of Egypt. Revered and admired by the population, she spent many of her days traveling up and down the Nile to visit her subjects and address their troubles and concerns. Under her rule, Egypt remained a powerful and prosperous nation and a strong ally of Rome. The fruits of the Nile flowed freely to the people of the Republic. After traveling all across Africa for many years, going wherever her instincts took her, Rhea eventually returned to Memphis and to the service of Tener at the Temple of Ubasti. When her mentor passed away, Rhea naturally assumed the mantle as High Priestess of the Cat Goddess. Though the old faith was dwindling, she was greatly beloved by many, and her temple prospered, always home to many, many, many cats. With Diwydiachus once more assuming rulership of the Aedui, the tribe maintained a strong alliance with Rome, and through it, they greatly prospered. With the aid of the Aedui, Gallia slowly unified under Roman rule, and civilization soon began to creep into those lands in the form of paved roads, aqueducts, and fortified Roman towns. In his old age, did the Druid ever regret hastening the absorption and suppression of his own faith and culture? We will never know. The once proud and strong Arverni were greatly reduced by the defeat of Vercingetorix, but his survival gave them hope. His will to make war upon Rome had been crushed, but he remained a strong figure of leadership among his people, even despite his failures. With his guidance, the tribes of Gallia remained unified and somewhat at peace, and vestiges of their culture and traditions survived their gradual subjugation under Rome. In this work, I have done my best to recount the history of this fascinating period, truthfully and accurately. As I have scoured the sources and spoken to many who claimed to have heard the story from someone who was there at the time, one thing that has stood out to me is the pivotal moments along the way where our story could have turned out very differently. Might the legatus and his friends have remained in Rome to influence its politics in the years to come? Perhaps if they had chosen to lead the legion across the Rubicon and lay siege to Rome itself. I believe if such a thing had been done, Rome might no longer be a republic, but rather an empire. One should always take care when second-guessing historical figures with the benefit of hindsight. Here in the present, there will never truly be a way for you to know how you might have acted if you had lived in the past. nor can you ever be certain how history will remember you.